Everyone knows that video games are bad for society, that they make our youth violent, and that they perverse social behaviour amongst those who play them. This is an ideological construct moulded into the beliefs of many who preach against the influence of video games in our culture. The media effects of gaming are seen in some circles to be a primary cause for society's perceived shift away from emphatic interaction towards dissolute chaos. But what do the facts say? Researchers have been digging into the effects of violent video games in society for decades now, and have discovered that, like other visceral media, video games cannot be viewed as the sole culprit for criminal behaviour displayed by violent individuals. Individuals who are often affected far more by pre-existing psychological deformities brought on by abuse and neglect than from the media that they consume. As hotly debated as this issue already is, it is important to evaluate the conclusions reached by both sides and how they reached them in the first place, as well as identifying if this topic truly falls more into a grey area and what lessons society can learn from it. The most common area of concern regarding violent video games is their potentially negative influence on children and teenagers. The accusation is that gaming decreases an adolescent's grasp on social empathy and replaces it with apathetic thoughts and desires. Indeed, the media effects of gaming have been tested and confirmed by some research to a certain extent. Journalist Richard Gouliat wrote for The Australian in 2013 that medical imaging scans have shown that gamers' brains undergo physiological changes as they play, indicating that the interactive nature of shooting or running over digital people in a video game does increase the level of aggression in the player. However, Gouliat immediately concedes that how long those changes last and what the long-term implications are remain entirely unclear. Video games, like every other form of media, will elicit an emotional and psychological response from the consumer, and the purpose of an action-heavy visceral experience like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto is to give the player a rush of adrenaline as they partake in a digital power fantasy. However, as David Gauntlett argues in his essay, 10 Things Wrong with the Media Effects Model, the very concept of media effects is exaggerated and misplaced, often blaming the consumed over the consumer. He further analyzes this backward approach by stating, researchers should begin with that social problem and seek to explain it with reference, quite obviously, to those who engage in it, their background, lifestyles, character profiles, and so on. The fight against video games can therefore be viewed as a clear moral panic, with a perception from areas of the media and the public viewing them as detrimental to the tightly woven fabric of society. Video games have naturally seen an evolution of censorship and legal transparency throughout their history. Rating systems have been invented to give consumers a clear picture of the content found within the code, and particular games have seen bans from different countries, depending on how extreme they portray taboo or controversial topics. However, several studies have also found that video games can have positive effects on the player. As journalist Christopher Ferguson wrote in 2011, in another recent study of mine, I found that youth exposed to violent video games actually engaged in more pro-social behaviour. A survey conducted by Digital Australia in 2017 on Australian citizens corroborates with this conclusion, as they found that 92% of gamers play with other people at some point in their gaming. This also debunks another popular myth that all gamers are antisocial recluses, who never leave the couch in front of their television. Video games have the power to tell stories and offer experiences unlike any other form of media, but that hasn't led to it escaping the negative connotations and accusations from those who fear its influence. Indeed, being an interactive medium, video games have the potential to affect individuals more directly than other art, but the vast majority of the population never lets this influence take over their perception of society's structure. Video games who challenge social norms and break new ground should be celebrated for their achievements. But likewise, it is important to protect those who would interpret their influence as reality. Thank you.